Hello there, I'm Jack, and I welcome you to Phantom Chamber, a safe space of dread and distress. Feel free to stick around. For more than 200 years, a prominent symbol of the American people and its government has been the White House. In addition to this, the White House has also served as the home to most of the nation's presidents and their families. With such a rich past, it is no wonder that the White House is rumored to be haunted by some of its former inhabitants. The most mentioned sightings in the White House have included the ghosts of past presidents, Abraham Lincoln and Andrew Jackson, as well as the ghost of First Ladies, Abigail Adams and Dolly Madison. One of the most active ghosts said to appear in the White House is the ghost of the United States' 16th president, Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln was president during the Civil War and died on April 15, 1865, only 6 days after the war had ended. According to Ward Hill Layman, who was one of Lincoln's close friends, the president had had a premonition of his own death in a dream. Prior to his death, Lincoln told Layman that in his dream, he had awoken and walked down the stairs, only to see people crying and the body of a dead man in the East Room of the White House. In the dream, when Lincoln asked who had died, a soldier answered the president. He was killed by an assassin. This dream came true when Lincoln was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth at the Ford's Theater. Since his death, Lincoln has been seen by many people who have either lived or worked in the White House. The first sighting of Lincoln's ghost was by Grace Coolidge, wife of 30th President Calvin Coolidge. She reportedly saw him in the Oval Office as he looked out the window with his hands behind his back. The president's ghost was most likely stressed about the Civil War. Another person who was said to have seen an apparition of Lincoln was Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands. She reportedly heard a knocking at her door and opened the door only to faint at the sight of Lincoln. Winston Churchill and a White House maid also claimed to have seen Lincoln's ghost sitting in his room. When the maid reportedly saw the former president, he was simply taking his shoes off. Churchill's sighting happened after he had taken a bath, and supposedly he even talked to the president's ghost. The story goes that when Churchill saw Lincoln, he said, "Good evening, Mr. President. You seem to have me at disadvantage," referring to the fact that Churchill had just taken a bath. The ghost then disappeared, and Churchill no longer stayed in the Lincoln bedroom when he visited the White House. Lincoln's ghost is also said to have been the most active during Franklin D. Roosevelt's presidency. It is speculated that this was because Roosevelt was president during the Great Depression and World War. This was similar to the time of crisis that Lincoln faced during the Civil War. Another ghost known to appear in the White House is that of First Lady Abigail Adams. She and her husband, President John Adams, were the first presidential couple to move into the White House. When the Adams moved to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the White House was still under construction, and it was only half finished. It rained frequently in Washington, D.C., and that posed as a problem to Abigail Adams when it came to hanging laundry up to dry. She found that the East Room was the best place to hang up the clothes since it was dry and warm. Because of this, some have said they have seen her ghost with arms outstretched, as if carrying a laundry basket towards the East Room. It is claimed that when she was spotted, she was wearing her signature cap and shawl. It is also said that when her ghost is seen, there is also a smell of soap and damp cotton. Abigail Adams is not the only First Lady to continue to reside in the White House. Dolly Madison, wife of President James Madison, is also a spirit known to appear in the presidential house. While living in the White House, Mrs. Madison was a socialite, and she cared deeply about the rose garden she had designed at the White House. And her first sighting was recorded as being when First Lady Edith Wilson moved into the White House and wanted to have the Rose Garden removed. When workers began to dig up the garden, they claimed to have seen the angry ghost of Dolly Madison. The workers stopped the destruction of the garden, and the Rose Garden still stands today. Andrew Jackson, the 7th President of the United States, is yet another ghost that has been seen in the White House. When Jackson ran for president against John Quincy Adams, Jackson won the majority of the people's votes. Though he had the most votes, he was not elected president. Instead, the House of Representatives decided that Adams would become president. Jackson did not win that election, but in 1828, he was finally victorious and became the country's 7th president. Though he had won, he still seemed to have been bitter because of his initial loss. When Mary Todd Lincoln saw his ghost in the White House's Rose Room, she claimed that he was cursing, which could express Jackson's angry attitude towards those who voted against him becoming president. Others who have seen Jackson say that he laughs loudly in the Red Room. Today, his bed remains in the Rose Room, where he has been heard stomping around and swearing. Among other supposed and lesser-known hauntings in the White House is the spirit of a British soldier from 1814, when the White House had been burned down. People who claim to have seen these ghosts say that he carries a torch and stands on the area surrounding the White House. Visitors in the White House also said that the soldier tried to set fire on the bed they were sleeping in. William Henry Harrison, the nation's 9th president, is another lesser-known ghost that is said to be heard in the attic, looking for something, and no one knows what exactly he is looking for. Finally, the ghost of Anne Surratt is said to be seen at the White House on July 7. Anne was the daughter of Mary Surratt, who played a part in the assassination of President Lincoln. Mary was executed on July 7, and that is why Anne is seen pounding and pleading for her mother at the door of the White House. (1600 Pennsylvania Avenue), or the location of the White House, as it is more commonly known, is a place rich in history. It has been actively lived in for more than 200 years, and it is no wonder that it is considered one of America's most haunted houses. No one knows for certain if the White House is really haunted or not, but the legends of the ghosts of people such as Abraham Lincoln, Abigail Adams, Dolly Madison, and Andrew Jackson keep the memory of the people who shaped American history alive.